Hi. While there are many reasons that it just makes sense to become a preferred member of Melaleuca, it makes more sense than the Riverbend Ranch Black Label beef that's available from Melaleuca. This is the best steak in town, best black label beef in town at the best price. They can't do any better. Just best reason of all. We're going to learn some more about it now. As you know, I have a trouble of speaking uh, intelligibly from my brain injury. I'm sorry. Anyways, so I use video to share these opportunities with my friends and family. So if you like what you see here, please call me at area code 945-237-3673, and let's get started. Okay, God bless you.
Hello. I've been waiting for this day for more than 27 years. I'm really excited that it's finally time to tell you what we've been up to for the last almost 3 decades. You can tell I'm wearing my ranching clothes today rather than my usual corporate attire. That's because I'm here at Riverbend Ranch. Riverbend Ranch is familiar to all of our senior directors and our corporate leaders because it's a tradition to have dinner here at the ranch when people attend Road to Executive Director. Now there's a reason why I'm giving you this message here from the ranch. About 19 months ago, I posted a video on the Enhancing Lives Facebook page. It was a video of Belinda setting off a string of dynamite. You might remember it. Here it is.
Charging. Okay, everybody ready? Fire in the hole!
Good job, my God.
Now, you don't get to play with dynamite every day, and as you can tell, I thought that was kind of fun. Now, all I announced when I posted that video on the Enhancing Lives Facebook page back then was that we were starting to build our new manufacturing facility. But I never told you what that facility was going to manufacture. That was only 19 months ago. This is what has happened since then. And this is what that facility looks like today. It's a 210,000 square foot facility, and it costs $160 million to build. And of course, in Melaleuca style, it's all paid for. As you know, we plow Melaleuca's profits right back into the business to build a better future for you, our marketing executives. And this plant is a huge step in that direction. So what is it? That's the question we're going to answer today. What will we be producing from this facility? Well, I'm proud to say that it's a state-of-the-art beef processing plant. In fact, we think it's the most high-tech beef processing plant in the nation. Now, if you know anything about beef processing, then you know that for the last 30 years or so, the beef marketplace has been controlled by just 4 companies that dominate almost the entire beef industry throughout the entire United States. Those 4 companies are Tyson, JBS, Cargill, and National Beef Packing. These 4 companies are estimated to control 85% of all beef processed in the United States. This puts them into position to control the entire marketplace. And they do indeed control everything. They control what the rancher gets paid. They control wholesale prices, retail prices, quantity, quality, distribution, everything. It's quite a monopoly shared by just 4 companies. So if you eat beef, and almost everyone does, it's important for you to note that there's now another beef processor in town, and that's Melaleuca. But we don't only have the meat processing plant. It's taken us 27 years, but we now have all of the pieces, making us the only outfit in the entire United States that has a total vertically integrated beef operation, including all of the cattle ranches, farm ground to grow the feed, facilities, and now the processing plant itself that allows us to control the entire supply chain from start to finish. This includes the entire development of the animal for every day of its entire life, raising the feed that's fed to the animals, and the actual harvesting of the animals and the processing of the beef. No other ranch has a meat processing facility like this, and no meat processing facility owns a ranch that actually grows the cattle, nor do they own the farms that grow the feed for the cattle. It's taken us almost 30 years to get here, but we're finally here, and I'm really excited to tell you all about it. So hang on, here we go. We're here at our new beef processing facility. I've been anxious to tell you about it. As I said, the plant is approximately 210,000 square feet. It's located right here on the ranch. We believe that we're the only ranch in the world that has a USDA processing plant of this magnitude. There are ranches that claim to sell their own beef, and some do on a very small scale. But their beef is usually processed by a facility that the ranch does not own, so they lose control of quality. Some brands of beef have the word ranch as part of the brand name, but that doesn't mean that they really have a ranch. They're simply a meat company with a ranch name. But they like having the word ranch on the label as part of the brand, and although there's not really any ranch, they want people to believe that there is. So back to our processing plant. As I said, it's actually located right here on the ranch. We believe in protecting the environment, so we did not build it on prime pasture ground. We built it on a hill of lava rock surrounded by sagebrush. That's why Belinda had to set off that dynamite to break up the lava so that we could build the foundation. It's been a very fun project. There are many things that are extremely unique about this plant. First, it has state-of-the-art equipment all the way through. It would literally take a couple of hours to give you all the factors, but I'll share just a couple of the highlights with you. Most processing plants don't properly age beef. Proper aging adds flavor and tenderness. Aging is a process where you store beef at 30 degrees, slightly below freezing, for 21 days. Almost no one does it because it's so expensive to do, but we do. The plant has a 728,000 cubic foot aging cooler. That in itself is going to make our product substantially better than what you would find in the marketplace. The plant has a capacity of 600 head per day. That's 155,000 head a year. But it can be easily upgraded to more than twice that amount. Besides all the state-of-the-art equipment inside the plant, we have a whole lot of other features that no other plant in the nation has. A processing plant uses a lot of water. Our plant will use about 180,000 gallons of water per day. To make sure that none of that water goes to waste, we capture the water in a 20 million gallon lined reservoir and hold it there until spring, where we use it as irrigation on adjacent fields, which are in turn used to grow crops to feed cattle. We also catch any methane given off by the pond to recycle as fuel to heat hot water for the plant. We also have an extensive composting operation where we compost byproducts to be used to fertilize our fields that, in return, grow crops for cattle feed. Again, nothing goes to waste. Another important aspect is the fact that our 20,000 head feedlot is only 250 yards from the plant. In most processing plants, cattle are trucked hundreds of miles just prior to the day of harvesting. Loading and hauling cattle in trucks causes bruising and stresses the cattle, which greatly affects the quality of the meat. At Riverbend, since the processing plant is right here on the ranch, the cattle have a short, peaceful walk down a lane to the plant. There's no stress on the cattle, and we estimate it will save about $2 million a year in trucking costs. And of course, we'll pass that savings on to you and to your customers. So let's head back over to the ranch headquarters, and I'll tell you more. Now, what does a beef processing plant have to do with Melaleuca? Well, almost 27 years ago, I stated that the day would come when everything that is consumed in your household will someday be made available through Melaleuca. I'd like to take you back to our 1995 convention and relive that moment. Here it is. Let me explain a couple things to you. As we came forward with Melaleuca and saw the opportunity out there, we have defined, as most companies do, what your product niche is. So let me share that with you, if you haven't already realized. As you walk into your home and go through the cabinets and the closets, the pantries, the kitchen, the bedroom, the bathroom, we have defined our product niche as any product that is used in the home on a consistent basis and consumed day after day, week after week, month after month. That's our product line. Now you can imagine that is an extensive line. We have potential to roll out products for several decades to come. That was 27 years ago. Of course, we've kept that promise. Since that day, Melaleuca has introduced over 330 new products, including products like Renew, Soluguard Botanical, Peak Performance Pack, Safe and Mighty, Say Bella, Sustain Sport, Florify, and hundreds of other products. And today is just one more giant step towards having a healthier version of everything you consume in your home to be available through Melaleuca. So, Melaleuca has a brand new state-of-the-art processing facility. And yes, high-quality beef will now be part of our product line. But that's not the story, not by a long shot. The real story is what kind of beef, and how will it be different from what you purchase in the grocery store? That's where the magic is. We have something extremely special to offer the world. First, I'm going to give you some background on how we got here. And then I'm going to tell you what we're going to offer the world and what makes it so unique. We're also going to explain what gives our beef so much more flavor and tenderness, and what makes it more healthy, and why no one else is going to be able to compete with us. And then I'm going to tell you how it's going to impact your Melaleuca business. So first, some background. Cattle have always been part of my life. I grew up milking cows every night and every morning from the time I was 10 years old until I was 18 and I left home to go to college. Since the home I grew up in had no telephone, no television, and of course no video games, my little sister and I had to improvise. Sometimes we just played with the cows, and sometimes we used them for transportation. My point is that cattle have always been a part of my life. Even though I had a career in corporate America, when our kids were growing up, we always had a few calves around to teach our children and grandchildren responsibility and the merits of manual labor, like building fences, tending cattle, and just hard work. And then Belinda and I decided to stop dabbling and get serious about ranching. We started Riverbend Ranch 27 years ago, planning that someday it would become an important part of Melaleuca. It's been a wonderful journey. In the beginning, Riverbend Ranch only had operations in southeast Idaho. But as we grew, we expanded into Montana, Wyoming, and Utah. And now we even have ranching operations in Texas and Hawaii. The most northern portion of Riverbend Ranch is just 20 miles outside of Yellowstone Park. All told, Riverbend Ranch now consists of 8 ranching units totaling approximately 290,000 acres, or about 436 square miles, all in preparation for this announcement today. Riverbend Ranch is now a division of Melaleuca, the wellness company. The ranch employs about 65 full-time cowboys and ranch hands, and a few cowgirls. These cowboys are not pretend cowboys, they're the real thing. They're tough, hardworking, fun-loving staples of the Old West. They and their families breathe, sleep, and live cattle. The ranch currently runs approximately 62,000 head, consisting of mother cows, calves, bulls, feeder cattle, and yearlings. We specialize in Black Angus cattle because they're the best suited for this climate, and they're known to have the most tender and most flavorful meat. But all Angus are not created equal. Superior genetics are an important part of our story. Our purebred Angus operation is considered to have some of the best Angus genetics in the world. This is our sales arena. Every spring and every fall, ranchers from all over the country come to purchase genetics from Riverbend Ranch. On sale day, this room fills up with hundreds of cattlemen who've come to purchase Riverbend bulls or Riverbend cows to upgrade their herds. Sale day is really fun for me. We'll sell almost 500 bulls in a single day. It goes pretty fast. On average, we will sell one bull every 27 seconds. Sometimes it feels a little like the New York Stock Exchange.
Get 10 on the bull. I'll take 3, 4, 5 dollars, 6, 7. I can set it, yes, 8, 9. I can do it, 19, 12, 15. I can do it, I can 24,000, 24, 26. I can 26,000, 7. I can 26,000, 7. Sold out, $26,000 on it, 26,000.
As I said, we've been building the Riverbend Ranch brand for the last 27 years. For almost 3 decades now, we've been consistently scouring the nation, seeking out the absolute best Angus cows and the best Angus bulls. This has been a very fun but quite expensive endeavor, because the best Angus cows and the best Angus bulls in the world are considered to be extremely valuable. For example, the most expensive cow that we've purchased to date is a cow named HPCA Surefire P245. We paid $500,000 for her. The most we've ever paid for an Angus bull was for a bull named Bougie that we purchased earlier this year. Bougie cost a mere $165,000, but he is really something, or at least he thinks he is. These cattle are expensive because they're very special cattle. You might be asking, what in the world could make these cattle so valuable? Well, it's many, many things. We consider as many as 40 different factors when we purchase one of these top-of-the-line animals. It's very seldom that you find an animal where all 40 factors line up perfectly. It would be like rolling a pair of dice 40 times and having them come up the same all 40 times. It really doesn't ever happen. But sometimes you can get pretty close. And when all of the ideal factors line up, you have essentially the ideal cow. And when you have the ideal cow, you can create others just like her. So that is what makes her so valuable. One of the most important things that we look for is the flavor and tenderness of the beef. Tenderness and marbling are predictable and, of course, add tremendous value. We've been purchasing these expensive cows for almost 30 years, one at a time, and we now have purchased several hundred of some of the very best individuals in the world. Now, I assure you that we don't spend $500,000 for a cow and then turn around and eat her. These very special and extremely valuable individuals are breeding stock. They're the foundation of the herd. They create babies, and their babies create babies, and so forth. And over time, you can eventually have a herd of thousands of cattle with those kinds of genetics. So that is what Riverbend Ranch has today. So let's talk a little bit more about what makes these cattle so special. Well, many things, but like I said, some of the most important factors are flavor and tenderness of the meat. You've probably noticed that when you buy a ribeye steak or a sirloin or a filet, that sometimes it's really good. and sometimes it's not that great. Therefore, in order to give the consumer accurate information so chefs can identify and purchase the most tasty and highest quality beef, the USDA inspects the meat as it's being processed, and the USDA gives it a certain grade. The USDA grade is an accurate indicator of what you can expect in the way of flavor and tenderness. The key secret to flavor and tenderness is the amount of marbling. Marbling is tiny flecks of fat sprinkled in the muscle of the meat. It's these tiny flecks of fat that give high-quality, expensive steaks their flavor. Marbling, of course, also adds tenderness. And since flavor and tenderness is the target we're looking for, we're going to talk a lot more about marbling. When the USDA grades beef, it's simply a matter of how much marbling there is in the meat. Nothing more, nothing less. So here's a quickie course on USDA grades of beef. Watch this.
There are 8 grades of beef designated by the USDA, and there's one common factor that determines grade quality: the amount of marbling in the meat. Simply stated, the more marbling, the higher the grade. The 3 lowest grades are utility, cutter, and canner. These grades may be completely devoid of marbling and often come from older animals. They're typically reserved for making products like hot dogs and other processed meats. You'll never find meat in a supermarket labeled as utility, cutter, or canner grades because they're not palatable as straight cuts. The next grades are USDA Standard and USDA Commercial. Standard and commercial grades have no marbling and are considerably less tender than higher grades. When sold in the retail market, they typically go ungraded or are labeled under the store brand name and sold at very low prices. These grades are only suitable for stew and slow cooker recipes that will make them less tough. You would never consider grilling or frying these grades because it would result in dry, tough, hard-to-eat meat. You'd lose a lot of friends serving this at a barbecue. Next is USDA Select. Select beef is widely available in the retail market, but it is almost never labeled as USDA Select. USDA Select has slight marbling, but not much. It's a much leaner grade than USDA Choice and tends to be less tender and less juicy with less flavor. You wouldn't want to grill or fry this meat as it would be much too dry. You can cook USDA Select meats with moist heat methods like stewing, steaming, and poaching, or using a slow cooker. This helps break down tough fibers that are usually present in meat that has been graded Select. If you purchase meat at a grocery store and it has no grade designation, it's most likely USDA Select. If it were a higher grade of meat, say USDA Choice, the grocery store would proudly label it as USDA Choice. Speaking of USDA Choice accounts for roughly 50% of all graded beef. USDA Choice costs more, but is widely available to consumers in supermarkets and restaurants. If beef has been graded USDA Choice, the words USDA Choice will almost always appear on the label. Choice has a good amount of marbling, although less than USDA Prime. It can be cooked with almost any cooking method. You can typically grill, fry, roast, or bake this beef, as well as stew it or braise it without causing excessive dryness. USDA Choice is an excellent economic alternative to the next and highest grade of meat, USDA Prime, because USDA Prime can be quite expensive. It's also important to note that USDA Choice can be divided into 2 subgrades, Low Choice and High Choice. High Choice has the most marbling and is very close to the quality of USDA Prime in flavor and tenderness. USDA Prime is the highest grade of beef because it has the most marbling. There's simply nothing better. Beef that grades USDA Prime is very tender, very juicy, and full of flavor. USDA Prime is also very rare. Only about 9% of all graded beef will grade Prime. That's why it is very expensive. USDA Prime is usually reserved for high-end dining establishments. A USDA Prime steak at a fine restaurant in New York City, Chicago, or Los Angeles will cost between $85 to $95 a pound. People who can afford it will gladly pay that for a prime steak. That's because its exquisite tenderness and juicy flavor make it an absolutely delightful eating experience. But because USDA Prime is so rare and so expensive, many people have never tasted a USDA prime steak. In summary, quality is all about marbling. The higher the percentage of marbling, the higher the grade, because it's marbling that produces tenderness, juiciness, and the most flavor.
So now, let me tell you about Riverbend Ranch Black Label. That's the brand that will be available only to Melaleuca marketing executives and Melaleuca customers. Riverbend Ranch Black Label will be 100% USDA prime and high choice. That's right. Riverbend Ranch Black Label will be only USDA prime and high choice. But that's not all that makes Riverbend Black Label extremely unique. Riverbend Ranch Black Label will also be what we call never ever beef. That means our beef is grown without hormones and without antibiotics. That's a big thing because over 90% of all meat sold in America is raised with hormones and antibiotics. When you buy meat in the grocery store or at a restaurant, you can rest assured that it was raised on hormones and antibiotics. And you can be sure that it still has residues of those hormones and those antibiotics in the meat. That's guaranteed. At Riverbend, we never implant hormones and we never use antibiotics. We know the history of every single animal. We know where it was born, we know how it was managed, and we have tracked its progress and its health every day of its life. In fact, every animal will be certified that it has never been ill a single day in its life. And we will guarantee it's been raised with humane practices and given the most enjoyable life. We're going to talk more about that in a few minutes. But first, let's learn about hormones and antibiotics.
In the late 1950s, it was discovered that inserting growth hormones into cattle could lower the cost of producing beef animals by about 10 to 20%. By the early 1960s, over 90% of all beef in the United States were raised using hormone implants. That continues to be the case today. The implant is a small capsule containing a concoction of synthetic growth hormones that is inserted in the top of the ear between the skin and the ear's cartilage. These capsules usually contain a number of hormones, such as progesterone and testosterone, as well as synthetics, such as trenbolone acetate and zeranol, which is synthetic estrogen. Zeranol is still legal in the United States, but it has been banned in Europe because it's considered to bring on early puberty in humans and is also considered a carcinogen linked to breast cancer. Almost all ranches and almost all feedlots in the U.S. and Canada have been using hormone implants for the last 60 years. A calf may be implanted with hormone inserts several times during its life. If you buy meat at a grocery store or a restaurant, it's almost guaranteed that the beef was raised with hormone implants. It's also guaranteed that some of those hormones remain in the meat that you consume. Typically, meat that has been raised with hormones contains 7 to 20 times as much hormones as meat from an animal that was not raised with hormones. But hormone implants are just one of the concerns that educated, health-minded consumers have when it comes to beef. Antibiotic feed is another significant concern. It's typical for cattle to end up in a squalid, crowded feedlot to be fattened or finished for the last 6 months of their life. Because these cattle are packed into feedlots so tightly, if any animal gets sick, the entire feedlot is likely to get ill as well. So feedlots almost always feed a ration high in antibiotics to ward off disease. That means that if you purchase your meat at a grocery store, it potentially has some level of antibiotics in the meat that you eat. Some people believe that beef labeled as all natural
Good stuff.
means no hormones and no antibiotics.
You know all
But
this, huh?
that is not the case. Beef labeled as all natural can be misleading. The USDA allows meat that has been treated with hormones and antibiotics to be labeled as all natural, even if it was raised with hormones and antibiotics up to the last day of its life. All natural on the label simply means that it is not artificial meat. If you want to make sure that your beef hasn't been grown with hormones or antibiotics, it should be labeled never ever. Never ever means never having been given any hormones or antibiotics.
As people have learned about the concerns and drawbacks of consuming hormones and antibiotics in their beef, there's been an increasing demand for never ever beef. But it's very difficult to find simply because almost all cattle raised in the United States are now raised with hormones and antibiotics. That's why Riverbend Ranch Black Label is certified as never ever. Never ever means it is guaranteed to never have been given any growth hormones or antibiotics, not ever. Now, U.S. prime beef grown without hormones and without antibiotics is extremely expensive. Currently, a U.S. prime ribeye steak will be sold at retail for a $10 a pound premium. That means $10 more per pound than what a U.S. choice ribeye would cost. That's a huge premium on the difference between U.S. choice and U.S. prime. In addition to that, beef that has been raised without hormones or antibiotics worth an additional $2 to $3 per pound premium in the marketplace. So a $10 per pound premium for prime and an additional $2 premium for never ever above what you would pay for choice. A U.S. choice ribeye in the grocery store would cost approximately $16 a pound today. So you'd expect to pay approximately an additional $12 more per pound for USDA prime that is also never ever. So that's around $28 per pound or more for a hormone-free U.S. prime steak. That's downright unaffordable for most households. That's why U.S. prime is not normally sold in grocery stores. So I'm preparing you for some pretty high prices because that's what this quality of beef costs in the marketplace. And it costs that because prime is extremely rare and never ever is so much more expensive to raise. Now we're Melaleuca, the wellness company. We believe that our members want healthy beef as opposed to the kind of beef that's generally available in the marketplace. And as you know, Melaleuca Preferred members receive a very nice discount when it comes to pricing. And you know that our founding axiom is exceptional products at reasonable prices. So the overwhelming question is, are we able to produce this exceptional, extremely high quality beef at a price that our members can afford? We'll get to that in a minute. But there's much more to the Riverbend Ranch story. Often people go to the grocery store and buy product without thinking about where that product came from or how it was raised or how it was treated throughout its life before it ended up on the shelves of your grocery store or on your table. I suppose that some people would just rather not know. But for those who would like to know and who do care, let me tell you the rest of the story. It's important to realize that all cattle are not raised the same. There are basically two types of cattle. There are beef cattle that are raised for meat, like Charolais, Herefords, and Angus. And then there are dairy cattle that are raised for milk, like Holsteins and Jerseys and Guernseys. Dairies raise milk cows for milk, and cattlemen raise beef animals for meat. Dairy cows are very skinny and put all of their energy into producing milk. Beef cattle are beefy and are more chunky. Dairy animals don't have much meat on them whatsoever. Normally, dairy cattle are not used for meat because they're just mostly skin and bones. But there's been a new trend over the last 20 years in dairy herds that is actually changing the supply of beef in the United States. If you care about the source of your food and how it has been treated, and I care a lot about that, it's important to understand what the life of a dairy calf is like. Watch this.
There are over 60,000 dairies in the United States, totaling 9.5 million dairy cows. To produce a steady flow of milk, a dairy cow must give birth to one calf every year. A dairy cow will usually have 3 to 5 calves in her lifetime, but she only has to produce one female calf during her life to replace herself in the herd. So, what happens to all her other calves if only one of her calves becomes a milk cow at the dairy? You've probably never asked yourself that question. But you should, because the answer affects the quality of your food and, perhaps, your health. The simple answer is this. All her other calves are raised for meat. But there's a problem. If you know anything about dairy cows, you know that they're very skinny. They don't have much meat on them. Therefore, a purebred Holstein calf isn't worth very much when it comes to meat. So the dairy industry has figured out that they need to breed their extra Holstein dairy cows to Angus bulls, in other words, a beef bull, so they can market them as beef. But it gets much more complicated than that. A dairy cow's job is to produce milk for people, not for her own calf. That means she never gets to nurse her own calf. In fact, as soon as the calf is born, it's taken from its mother. It's put in a tiny crate, about 4 foot by 8 foot, and it stays in that stall until it's approximately 6 months old. It's implanted with growth hormones and fed a ration of milk from a bucket, as well as a constant diet of antibiotics, so it doesn't get sick. It simply lives in this tiny crate. It never gets out to roam around. Baby calves were intended to be outside in green pastures, growing up with their mothers. Calves like to romp around and play with other calves out in the open, in a healthy atmosphere, where they don't need antibiotics to survive. Cows and calves are social animals. They like being together. These baby calves never get out to play. When I say play, I really mean play. Any rancher knows that if he keeps a calf in a barn for even a full day and then turns the calf outside, it will be so happy for its freedom that it'll run and jump and frolic, like you see here. These calves were kept in a barn for just a short time and then turned outside. This will happen every time. Even with full-grown cows, if you keep them in a barn for a while and then turn them loose, they will do the same. Here's a video of a farmer that kept his cows in for the winter and then turned them outside. They're way too big to be jumping around like this, but they do it just the same. They're so happy to be turned loose outside.
Funny,
Calves that are raised in crates never get even a single day to go play
Cute.
outside. Nor do they ever get to taste a single blade of grass, not even one mouthful,
dogs.
not ever in their entire life. After they reach 6 months old, they were implanted with more growth hormones and turned into a feedlot where they continue to be fed a dry ration with lots of antibiotics. Because they're so crammed in there, in the feedlot, they still never get to taste a single blade of green grass or ever have the feeling of running free. These cattle are harvested at about 18 months of age. In fact, about 7 million half-Angus, half-Holstein calves are raised in this manner every year. It's an economic model that produces cheap meat, and it works for the dairy farmers. If you don't care what your beef comes from, and if you don't care that it's been treated with hormones and antibiotics, then it might work for you too. But more and more people are becoming interested in humane animal treatment and making their purchase decisions accordingly.
Look, this is how I see it. I grew up around animals, and I've been around animals my entire life. I enjoy them. I think that mankind has a responsibility of stewardship. I think we should treat animals humanely and responsibly. When animals are placed in our care, I believe that we should treat them well and give them the best life they can have. And that's where Riverbend Ranch comes in. Riverbend Ranch calves are born in the spring in March or April. They stay with their mothers from the day they're born. Mother cows care a lot about their babies. They nurture them and protect them and always know where their baby is. In June, as the weather warms up, the cows with their calves are moved to higher elevations, to mountain pastures where the temperatures are cooler and the grass stays green all summer. At 9 months old, they're weaned from their mothers. They spend the winter at lower elevations where the winters are not as severe. And then in the spring, when they're a year old, they're moved to high, lush mountain pastures of Idaho, Montana, or Wyoming, where they spend the summer together. These cattle are never mistreated. They have a wonderful life. They don't need antibiotics because they're roaming free in a totally healthy environment. They are cared for by people who love animals and who know how to take care of them. We believe humane treatment of animals is an important part of our story as we seek to provide our families with healthy, sustainable beef. Because Riverbend Ranch cattle are raised on green grass, on green pastures, and roam free in large mountain meadows, they stay healthy without antibiotics. Even when they are finally taken to feedlots to finish, they're not pushed in there like sardines. They're spread out so they can stay healthy without antibiotics. We monitor every animal's health every day of its entire life. If an animal were to ever get ill and needed antibiotics, it's taken out of the program, and when it regains its health, it will be kept with other animals that have been treated. And we will sell that meat, but not to Melaleuca customers. We'll sell it to grocery stores, just like everyone else does. But Riverbend Ranch Black Label is guaranteed to have been healthy every single day of its life. I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty important. So Riverbend Ranch Black Label beef has the following advantages. It's the highest quality beef in the United States. It's U.S. prime or high choice, which means it's very tender and full of flavor. It's never ever been given hormones or antibiotics. It's been aged for 21 days. It's been treated humanely with ethical standards of care. It has been raised by their own mothers and not grown in crates. It's been raised grazing on mountain pastures and open spaces and fresh air. And it's guaranteed to have been healthy every single day of its life. We have vertically integrated operations and are in control of the entire supply chain. Your beef is purchased directly from the ranch, pasture to plate. It's exclusive to Melaleuca customers. Riverbend Ranch Black Label will not be sold to anyone else. Like all Melaleuca operations, Riverbend Ranch is debt-free, which means it's here to stay. Nothing can take us out. Now let's talk about how we're going to use this phenomenal offering to build your Melaleuca business and increase your commissions. Over the years, we've added hundreds of new products to our product offering. In doing so, we've learned a lot. In the beginning, when we added a new product, it would always lift the average order a little bit. But as our product offering has grown to hundreds of exclusive wellness products, we've learned that adding new products doesn't necessarily increase average order. So with Riverbend Ranch Black Label, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to market Black Label beef as a business on top of a business. What does that mean? It means it will be almost like having two businesses, your Melaleuca business and your Riverbend Ranch business. Riverbend Ranch orders will be treated separately from your other Melaleuca orders. It means that when a preferred member orders their 35 product points from Melaleuca, their Riverbend Ranch order will not count towards that 35 points. Therefore, since product ordered in your Riverbend Ranch organization will not count towards the 35 product points, when a customer orders beef, it will be in addition to their regular Melaleuca order, and you will get a separate commission on your Riverbend Ranch organization. We estimate that your Riverbend Ranch business will increase the average product points for each Melaleuca customer about 25%, which will, of course, increase your Melaleuca monthly repeat income by the same amount, at least 25%. In addition to that, we believe it will bring a lot of new customers to Melaleuca. According to recent surveys, Melaleuca's average customer consumes between $50 and $150 of beef every month. So we've tailored our offering to that information. Of course, our entire offering will be via the internet. Now, there's some pretty successful internet beef programs out there, but we will have some tremendous advantages over all those competitors. For example, almost everyone has heard of Omaha Steaks. They're the most well-known and the most successful internet beef program in the country. Of course, Omaha Steaks is raised with hormones and antibiotics. It's not USDA prime or high choice, and it's not advertised to be never ever. And yet it's extremely expensive. Even though Riverbend Ranch Black Label will be much higher quality, we'll offer it to our Melaleuca preferred members at a much lower price than Omaha Steaks. A newcomer, but very successful, relatively young company selling beef via the internet is ButcherBox. ButcherBox has taken the market by storm and is quite competitive in the marketplace. Their beef is not even grown in America. It comes from Australia. It's also harvested and processed in Australia. It's also not prime or high choice. So again, our beef will be much higher quality and will be at a much better price than ButcherBox. But since ButcherBox has been so successful in the marketplace, we're going to use some of the things that ButcherBox does in their business model. For example, ButcherBox operates on a subscription-only basis, and that fits our model quite well. We're going to start out on a subscription-only basis. That means you'll have some choices on certain combinations of beef that you can order to arrive at your doorstep each month. These combinations will be called bundles, and you can choose to receive your bundle of beef either monthly or every 2 months. And you can choose to change bundles from month to month as long as you tell us before we ship your next bundle. Now, after we've been in business for a few months and learn a little bit more about what our customers' purchase habits are going to be, you'll be able to add a la carte cuts like steaks or roasts or ground beef or steak strips to your monthly bundle. But we won't be able to do that in the beginning. So tomorrow, you'll be able to go to Melaleuca.com and click on Riverbend Ranch Steaks and choose your subscription. Again, commissions on your Riverbend Ranch business will be in addition to your Melaleuca commissions. So there's no limit to how much you can earn under this program. Product points earned from your Riverbend Ranch business will be added to your total volume of your Melaleuca business each month, which will of course cause you and other marketing executives to advance in status more quickly. Now, it's important to note that the only qualifications to receiving commissions on your Riverbend Ranch business is that you need to set up your Riverbend Ranch personal production account that subscribes to receive an order of beef every month or every 2 months. To qualify to receive commissions, your personal Riverbend Ranch account needs to stay active in order for you to receive commissions on your Riverbend Ranch organization. So your first priority is to set up that account. If you have customers that subscribe prior to the month that you set up your personal account, you'll not ever receive commissions on those customers. Let me repeat that. It's important that you lead out. If you have customers that subscribe prior to the month that you set up your personal production account, you'll not qualify to receive commissions on those customers. So act now. If you and your customer both enroll in the same month, that'll not be a problem. But if they enroll in a month prior to the month that you set up your account, that creates a problem for you. So it's imperative that you get your account set up right away this month. Tomorrow would be ideal. Again, in the beginning, Riverbend Ranch will be available by subscription only. That means you sign up to receive a supply of beef every month or every 2 months. The reason it has to be subscription only in the beginning is simple. We're starting a whole new business here. Everything is new. There's a lot that's unknown to us, such as what will our volumes be? How many total customers will subscribe? What cuts will be in highest demand? What shipping challenges will we run into? And so forth. There are so many moving parts that it's really difficult to predict accurately. We want to do it right, so we're going to take it one step at a time. After we have a few months of experience under our belt, we'll be able to offer certain cuts a la carte. But in the beginning, we will only be offering certain bundles of beef. Customers will have a choice of 5 or 6 bundles that they can subscribe to. If you order monthly, you'll get a slightly better price than if you order every 2 months. The total price will include shipping, so there will be no shipping fee tacked on. I'm going to say that again. Shipping is included in the price. There will be no additional shipping charge. So how much does this beef cost, and how do we earn commissions and use it to grow your Melaleuca business? Since it costs a lot more to grow beef without hormones and antibiotics, and since we're offering only expensive USDA prime and high choice, you'd be right to assume that it's going to cost more than the meat that you're purchasing in the grocery store today. But I think you'll be pleased to learn that we can offer it at a very decent price. In fact, our prices will be substantially better than any of the national companies that are selling meat on the internet, even though our beef is of a much higher quality than what they're selling. Each Riverbend Ranch bundle has different cuts of beef, and each bundle is a different price. A bundle will contain various cuts from somewhere between 8 to 15 pounds of meat, depending on the bundle. The price of a bundle, including shipping, will be somewhere between $98 and $182, and the price includes shipping. Your bundle will come monthly or every 2 months. The price is better if you order monthly, but you should gauge that based on how much beef your family consumes. Let's look at the ribeye bundle, for example. It contains 4 ribeye steaks, 2 pounds of steak strips, 1 pound of diced steaks, and 3 pounds of ground beef. The price for the ribeye bundle is $146 ordered monthly, or $158 if ordered every 2 months. You might be asking how these prices compare with the competition. None of our competitors have this exact bundle, and their prices change almost weekly. But based on their offerings, it's fairly easy to calculate what this exact bundle would cost if you purchased from any of the national companies who sell beef on the internet. Let's take a look. If you purchased the ribeye bundle from Snake River Farms, it would cost $525. If you purchased it from Double R Ranch, it would cost $343. If you purchased it from Omaha Steaks, it would cost you $336. And you can get a screaming good deal from Butcher Box for $215.11. But as a Melaleuca Preferred member, you can get this bundle for just $146. I don't know about you, but I think that's huge. If you do the math, in many cases, you could actually get all of your Melaleuca products and your Riverbend Ranch bundle for what you'd have to pay for these other brands. And Riverbend Ranch beef is much higher quality. In fact, I just got to show you this. We ordered a shipment of ribeyes from Butcher Box. Here is a Riverbend Ranch Black Label ribeye lying next to a Butcher Box ribeye. Besides the size, there are other issues. The thickness of the Butcher Box ribeye was not even. It was 3/4 of an inch thick on one end and 1 1/4 inch thick on the other end. I don't know how you can cook that steak evenly. But there's another problem. Look at the color of the fat. That difference is because of how we finish the beef. The Riverbend Ranch ribeye will taste a whole lot better than the Butcher Box ribeye, guaranteed. Besides the price, quality is where we really shine. Let's do a side-by-side comparison. Only Riverbend Ranch checks all the boxes. Butcher Box is not vertically integrated. Their beef comes from Australia, and it's not graded prime or high choice. Omaha Steaks is grown with hormones and antibiotics and is not graded prime or high choice. Snake River Farms uses antibiotics, and Double R Ranch uses both hormones and antibiotics and does not guarantee high choice, and you have to pay extra for prime. So Riverbend Ranch Black Label is much higher quality and yet at a much lower price. You've got to be asking yourself, how in the world can Riverbend Ranch give a much higher quality product at a much lower price? The answer is that we're vertically integrated. We control quality and price from beginning to end. It's our business model. Product points will simply be calculated as 10% of the total price of the bundle, including shipping. But there's more good news. Instead of getting paid 7% of product points like you do with your Melaleuca products, with Riverbend Ranch, you'll receive a commission of 10% of all Riverbend Ranch product points in your organization. That's right. 10% of product points on your Riverbend Ranch business. And of course, those product points will be added to your total Melaleuca business volume, which will allow you to advance more quickly. Now let's talk about timing. The plant is currently in startup mode, which means we're just now starting to operate the facility. We don't anticipate being able to ship meat until the last week of April. So that's when you can expect your first bundle of meat to arrive. So right now, we're in pre-subscription mode. That means getting everyone enrolled in the subscription program so that we'll have enough meat to ship to customers when we go live. The most important thing for you to do is to go to
We've already been
Melaleuca.com,
live
click on Riverbend Ranch,
for
and
years
choose which
now.
bundle you want to receive, and then you need to indicate whether you want to receive your bundle once a month or every 2 months. Now in the future, there's going to be a $10 lifetime membership fee. But this month, that will be waived. So now is the time to act. Now before I go further, I need to say that pricing for Canada, Hawaii, Alaska, and Puerto Rico will be different than the lower 48 states because we'll have to ship by air to those areas. Now, for your customers that may not be watching this program today, we'll have segments of this presentation available for them on Melaleuca.com so they can get up to speed on everything that we've talked about today and so they can get themselves enrolled. Riverbend Ranch Black Label Beef is going to be a big deal. Not everyone's going to enroll immediately, but as soon as they understand what we have to offer and the price, they're going to want to subscribe. And there's a huge market out there for premium beef that's hormone-free and antibiotic-free. It's going to be a great enrollment tool for new customers since they'll not be able to purchase Riverbend Ranch Black Label without being a Melaleuca preferred customer. So use it as an enrollment tool. And please let your entire organization know about this right away today via texts and emails and phone calls and social media. You should light up their phones and direct them to Melaleuca's homepage where they can learn more about this program. It's important that they hear from you about this, but you also need brand new customers this month. So remember your main goal, which is to enroll new customers. So here's the plan. Enroll yourself as a subscriber right away and then reach out to your organization to let them know it's important that they subscribe also. And then get back to work enrolling new Melaleuca customers. So that's it, folks. A brand new business on top of your current Melaleuca business. It can make a significant impact on your income. Riverbend Ranch Black Label Beef will attract thousands of new customers. And most importantly, we'll be supplying the world and your customers with beef that's much more flavorful and much more healthy than what they've been eating. Riverbend Ranch Black Label Beef, another exclusive Melaleuca product that will add years to your life and life to your years.
It really is some good beef. We've had some of the best hamburgers we've ever had. We've had the best meatballs for spaghetti we've ever had. We've had the best steaks we've ever had. It's really good stuff. So contact me. You get your account open. Get your Riverbend Ranch beef. My website, Riverbend Steaks. RiverbendRanchSteaks.com/Brandon Smith. I'll leave the link in the description or in the comments. I'll hear from you. Give me a call. Area code 945-237-3673. Again, Brandon Smith. God bless.